table, I'm Pauline Johnson-Williams, Program Coordinator of the Secretariat, and we have Mr. Eddie D. Jowell, Board Member of the ECC. We also have Councillor Oscar Blow. He's the Chair of the ECC and a Board Member as well. We have Madam Amy Davis-Gambo, working for Wimboso, also serving as a Board Member of the ECC. We have Mona Kia, also representing Wimboso, and is with the Board Member from Wimboso. So welcome. We will give Mr. Councillor the chance to read his statement, after which time we will take questions and answers. Thank you.
Preliminary statement. Elections Coordinating Committee, Lofa Senatorial Elections, June 30th, 2022. The ECC commends the people of Lofa County for conducting themselves peacefully on Election Day, June 28, 2022. This preliminary statement is based on reports that the ECC has received from 140 out of 162 short-term election observers deployed to voting precincts to observe the Lofa Senatorial by-elections on June 28, 2022. The ECC trained and deployed 168 accredited observers in all 5 electoral districts of Lofa County to observe the senatorial by-elections. On election day, the ECC released an initial update on the setup and opening process. Observers noted that the opening process was peaceful, orderly, and proceeded smoothly with no serious critical incident. They reported that voting generally commenced on time in most of the observed polling places, and all sensitive voting materials were present. However, observers also reported that a relatively high percentage, 48%, of observed precincts and polling places were not accessible to people with disabilities or the elderly due to the use of stairs. Key findings. Based on reports received from ECC observers deployed, voters turned out peacefully to vote with no serious critical incident. ECC commends all voters of Lofa in protecting the peace and democratic stability of Liberia. Generally, observers reported that voting procedures were followed by NEC officials. In 68% of observed precincts, all voters who presented a valid voter registration card found their details on the final registration roll. However, 33% of polling places observed showed that people with valid voter cards' names were missing from the final registration roll. Despite this, no incidents of tension was reported as a result of the missing names from these precincts. However, ECC observers noted inconsistencies in how NEC staff addressed the issue of voters whose names were missing from the final registration roll. For instance, in 11% of polling places observed by the ECC, voters with valid voter cards whose names were missing on the FFR were permitted to vote. In keeping with the NEC Polling and Counting Manual, Chapter 4, on determining who may not vote, subsection E states that a person may not vote if he or she cannot be found in the voter's roll. Party agents. Observers noted that political parties deployed agents to observe during voting and counting in all electoral districts observed. ECC observed that very few complaints were filed on the process. For example, 6 of observed polling places indicate that party agents filed a complaint. Security. Observers also noted that 98% of voting precincts observed, security personnel were present and generally conducted themselves in a professional manner. Voting process in precincts. Within the assigned precincts, ECC observers witnessed NEC staff generally follow voting procedures. They reported
the following. In 98% of precincts observed, voters were asked to present their voter registration card before being allowed to vote. EC observers in 99% of precincts reported that the ballot papers were stamped before being handed to the voter. They further noted that in some instances, the tactile ballot was issued to visually impaired voters to vote, which accounted for 45%. In 97% of observed precincts, the voting screen was placed in a way that guaranteed the secrecy of the vote. ECC observers noted that the fingers of voters were inked after voting in 99% of observed precincts. In all instances, ECC observers noted that priority was given to pregnant women, physically challenged, and elderly voters during the process. Closing and counting process at polling places. ECC observers reported that 61% of observed polling places closed between 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Similarly, during the closing, there were inconsistencies observed in keeping with the regulations. In 79% of observed polling places, there were voters still in queue at 6 p.m. In 59% of observed polling places, voters in the queue at 6 p.m. were allowed to vote. However, in 20% of observed polling places, voters still in queue at 6 p.m. were denied the right to vote. Critical incident. ECC observers also reported that on June 29, 2022, the day after the election, tension ensued between rival supporters of unity parties, Kalema Kotima, and independent candidate, Councillor Joseph Jala, following separate pronouncements on radio stations in Foya district by Representative Thomas Fowler and Unity Party spokesman in Lofa, Peter T.O. James, with both sides claiming victory and calling on their respective supporters to celebrate. While the ECC is cognizant about the statutory period required for the NEC to announce results, the just ended election in Lofa was a single election, and any delay in the announcements of results has the potential to heighten a polarized and divisive political environment in Lofa. We recommend the following to the National Elections Commission that the results should be announced as soon as possible in order to reduce tension in the county. That the NEC provides timely information to the public on any challenges emerging on the counting, collating, and transmission of results. That the NEC treat all electoral disputes equally and adjudicate them in a timely and transparent manner. To political parties and independent candidates and their supporters, we call on them to remain peaceful, abide by the laws, and refrain from using the media to claim victory until the certified and official results are declared by the NEC in keeping with the elections law of Liberia. If any political party or independent candidate has grievances on the electoral process and results, they are encouraged to follow the laws and procedure as enshrined in the Constitution, the electoral laws, and regulations. To the Liberian National Police and other security agencies, we urge them to continue to demonstrate neutrality and professionalism in dealing with all electoral stakeholders during the post-electoral period. To the media, we recommend that the media refrain from disseminating misinformation and disinformation during the period of counting, collating, and announcement of results. This statement and the observation of the elections was done in partnership with Democracy International with funding from USAID. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we now open the floor for any questions. I encourage you to please introduce yourself, your institution, before you can ask your question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Elijah Pine from Fortune Television. We raise our account in relation to partisan of independent candidate Joseph Jala celebrating while the counting process still ongoing. And also have some guys from the Unity Party as well doing likewise. What have been the intervention of the ECC during said process as it relates to, have you been able to conscientize those partisans that they should wait on the final result, or providing some information in relation to curtail the spread of high level of corruption?
What the core mandate of the ECC is to observe the electoral processes from opening, voting, counting, as well as following complaints, and then we provide independent observation of what we've observed. The issue of announcements of electoral results, that framework is guaranteed by the elections law of Liberia. And we expect that political parties and independent candidates will adhere to the legal framework. And so in as much as political parties and independent candidates have a right to organize situation rooms and collate their respective data on how their supporters voted, it is the responsibility of the NEC to pronounce and declare results. So we urge, as we say in the statement, that the political tension in Lofa is heightened, and to further deepen that heightened situation is uncalled for, and we call on political parties to refrain from the use of the media to pronounce that they have won. In case those pronouncements turn out to be the opposite, as may be when NEC announces the result, that has the propensity to inflame chaos in Lofa. And so we urgently and reinforce our call to all political parties. And if a political party didn't partake in these elections, they should refrain from further pronouncement of results. Those candidates that are on the NEC registration are the ones that have a stake in this just NA elections. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Augustine Gutierrez. I work for Crown FM. In a very short or simple word, how will you describe the post-election situation? Fair, tense, good, or how you name it? Fair, good, bad, excellent. How can you tell it?
Okay, so we will hail the people of Lofa County. There were lots of rumors and different kinds of expectations in Monrovia that the elections in Lofa was highly politically charged and therefore would be chaotic. And we saw how the government responded with the presence of security personnel of different units in the county. And as we turned out, the people of Lofa disproved that expectation. They turned out peacefully to vote. So politicians and political parties should refrain from trying to exacerbate a situation that was peaceful on election day. So if you ask me now in Lofa, with this claim and counter-claim of who has won and who has not won, it is slowly building up tension in the county. This is unhealthy, and it's a risk factor for undermining our democratic credential.
Just to add to the question, the issue of rating the post-election activities is not timely right now because it's still ongoing. The announcement the result not being announced. We are not seeing the candidate taking on the legal framework to see the international result. So in that process, you cannot rate it whether it's good or bad.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, great. I'm Francis Boy, and I report for Frontier Africa. Within your statement, you made mention of certain amount of votes that have been counted, but you didn't give any kind of thing like results from what your observers within Lofa reported. You talk about percentage of what have been counted, but you didn't mention of any other thing further.
Yeah, so our primary role in this just an election was to observe the electoral process and provide an independent assessment of how the elections went. We didn't focus our intervention on capturing results. Okay, so we don't speak towards results in terms of which candidate or political party obtained what percentage of votes. As an independent election observation group, we are concerned about results, but we think that is the prime responsibility of the political actors. Those who have a primary stake in these elections are those who vested their time and resources into running to become a senator. So that prime responsibility is on them to ensure that they deployed party agents across the various polling places so that they can be able to have credible information to claim that they've won. So we don't speak towards election results. Maybe in the future that will be another issue for us to deal with, but for this just an election, we didn't focus our attention on capturing results.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Darius and I'm over OPFN. Sir, you are requesting like to speed go forward with the result. Now, other people may say NEC have 15 days before releasing result. What is the fear?
We just told you in our statement that we are fully aware of the statutory period that NEC has to release these results, and the law says within 15 days. But given the heightened tension, given that this is just a single election with just over 100,000 votes, we think that the NEC shouldn't wait for the 15 days to be able to announce the results. We're calling on them with the heightened situation and claims and counterclaims from the parties and independent candidates. We think it will be prudent, it will be in the best interest of the country if the NEC begins as soon as possible to begin to release some preliminary results that will help to calm down the fears and most importantly, some unrealistic expectations that are coming from some of the political parties.
Okay.
My question is in relation to what you said you observed. Some individuals having voter registration cards, but when it comes to the lack of consistency on the part of NEC in treating people with voter registration cards whose names were not on the final voter roll, some were allowed in your observation to vote and some were allowed to vote. Moving forward, especially as we go towards 2023, what would be your recommendations in addressing such a situation?
Well, the ECC and with many other stakeholders have been calling for the country to transition to biometric voter registration system, and that will help to respond to some of the issues around on the voter roll. So these manual processes will always be marked by these kind of challenges. So to improve the quality of our democracy, we have called on the government and the NEC to be able to find resources to invest in the procurement of the voter registration biometric system, that in 2023 we may not be able to experience these kind of challenges that come about as a result of manual voter registration system.
Thank you so much. I think that will be the end of the statement. We have hard copy of the statement we will share. And if you have your email address, we can send you the e-copy. But thank you so much for coming and letting me talk.